Hello, can you hear us?
I can hear you, yeah.
Yeah.
I can hear you.
Yay! We got it. Yeah. Oh, my third time lucky. So we can see you very well, and we can hear you very well, and we're assuming you can hear us now as well.
I can. Give me a second.
Wonderful. Yay! So we will just let you know who we are, because we're kind of here. So we've got quite a few activists. You can see them, some of them, and they drove and flown all the way here from Switzerland, Portugal, Sweden, Spain, France, Canada, Poland, and Denmark, right? And we decided we want to start this conversation about AI. And who better than you to tell us a little bit more about this? Because, you know, we all know a bit, and we're all trying to see how, you know, this will affect all of us. And yeah, so if you could share your... Oh yeah, there's the camera. I should have been looking to the camera. I'm sorry. Yeah, that one. Right, sorry. Was so silly, yes. But yeah, if you could just share a little bit of your stuff with us, that would be amazing for all of us. Yeah, it's muted.
Okay, good. Yeah. I'm unmuted now. Can you hear me?
Yes. Perfect now.
Great. Thanks. Thank you, Justina, for inviting me to speak here. AI right now is the most important issue of our time, and I'm pleased to share some thoughts about it. What I'm going to do is give you a small talk called the intelligence explosion, and it's about where we are right now with AI and what's coming up. So I guess we have about 40 minutes. Yeah. So I'll go get right to it, and then maybe there'll be time for questions at the end. If not, you could text me some or email me or whatever. So I'll just begin. As you know, we're living in a time when it's more than ever before. We have to carefully pay attention to the technology that we create and understand what we can gain from it, but also what we might lose. I'd like each person to immerse yourselves in artificial intelligence. You really should read books, listen to experts, talk to them about how to use this transformational technology, and learn as much about it as you can, because it's changing very rapidly and developing very rapidly. We all need to hold technology companies responsible for how they use AI and insist that they act ethically. Most of all, I want you to ask yourselves what kind of future, shaped by the immense promise and peril of AI, you imagine for yourselves and your children. We're in the middle of an AI revolution whose size is really very hard to grasp. One way is with dollars. Since 2009, the amount invested in AI has doubled every year. Right now, it's at about $50 billion. PriceCoopers Waterhouse, the accounting firm, says that by 2030, AI will add $16 trillion to the global GDP. That same year, 2030, says Gartner and Company, another financial advice group, they say it will take 1/3 of all jobs by 2030. So in jobs and dollars, we know this AI revolution is very big. I like to think about it in slightly more personal terms. Everything around us, everything electric, will be cognitized. Everything that's currently electric will have intelligence added to it. And we can see it already. Our phones have become complete computers. All the devices around us in our homes will become intelligent. Our homes themselves will become part of the smart grid. And then think beyond that to smart factories that where the products being made tell the factory what parts they need. Smart warehouses that keep their own inventory, that restock themselves. And then smart cities, which are actually a very exciting trend. smart cities where the welfare of each person is looked after by AI. But the success of the AI revolution won't depend on if everything electric is made intelligent. That will happen. The AI revolution will succeed or fail based on an older concept, ethics. Does the AI benefit everyone equally or just a few? Are we making tools to improve lives or weapons to destroy them? Is every AI invention necessary and good? If the answer is yes, then we have a lot to look forward to. If the answer is no, the AI revolution will be very painful and very short. And that's where we are at this moment. We're evaluating AI creations from within the AI revolution and trying to decide if they're both necessary and good. There are many good applications of AI. Before I was a skeptic, I was a big fan, and I'm still generally a fan of AI because of its immense potential. So some of the good applications of AI, well, the fact that we're talking today is partly made possible by AI. Healthcare management has been improved by AI. Disease mapping, tracking the COVID epidemic has been helped immensely by AI. Automated investing, diagnostics, affinity analysis. Affinity analysis is when you look at streaming services or when you're buying a book online, they'll make suggestions for other things for you to watch or to buy. Navigation. I used to get lost all the time whenever I drove anywhere. Now with my phone, I can drive without spending hours in the wrong place. AI is good at finding business efficiencies. It's good at making conversational marketing tools. Ultimately, I think the most exciting development in AI will be digital assistants. Right now, we have Siri and Amazon Echo and a few others, but there's terrific potential in the future for making conversational machines that we can actually hold conversations with, that will actually be useful. And the potential is incredible for people who are homebound, for elderly people, for people who don't have company, for prisoners. The idea of having something to talk to that's actually intelligent and that has a vast knowledge of you and just the information in the world will be a terrific resource. Recently in the US, I've been talking to media a lot about a scandal we had, you might know about, with Google's large language module called LAMDA. That stands for Language Model for Dialogue Applications. I don't know if you've heard about that. Yep. But an engineer named Blake Lemoine was supposed to find out if LAMDA used profanity or was racist. And in his experiments, he became convinced that LAMDA had a soul. And he actually hired a lawyer to represent it. Now, the idea is very intriguing, but he was completely wrong. But it really illustrates the power of the next generation of digital assistant. It can convince an engineer that it's actually sentient. By the way, there's no doubt that it is not sentient. I think what you might not have heard is that Blake Lemoine is a Christian priest from a mystical tradition. So he sees souls in everything. He probably sees souls in copying machines and Coke dispensers. Anyway, what's interesting about that particular use is that in the future, that technology could be used to create propaganda. And that's the trouble with the Blake Lemoine story, is that it distracts us from real ethical questions about AI. So we've talked about some of the good applications. Let's talk about some of the bad uses and bad effects of AI. The biggest one right now, because we're using technology called artificial neural networks, which roughly are modeled after the human brain, they rely on big data. These techniques are called, the program I talked about is a large language module, but that's just one of many deep learning applications. all of them require vast amounts of data. In fact, LAMDA was trained on 1.6 trillion words and phrases in dialogue form. So the trouble with all that data is someone has to check it for bias and racism, and that's actually what Blake Lemoine was supposed to be doing when he discovered the soul in a machine. But the problem is that a lot of the algorithms we're using today are based on old data. For example, a lot of college applications from 20 and 30 years ago didn't have as many Black applicants or as many women applicants. So using that data today, Black applicants and women applicants are not accepted as often as white male applicants. The same thing is happening in prison sentencing. In Florida, a case came up, Florida in the United States, a case came up where all the data that was being used in the sentencing algorithm was 20 or 30 years old when people of color, when minorities were put in jail a lot more often and for longer periods than white people. So the results they got today were the same. They got biased results and longer sentences for people of color. This is happening right now. Amazon just killed an algorithm that for hiring people because it was biased against women. So it goes on and on. College applications are also, there's a big problem with that. So bias in data reinforces discrimination. That's a big problem. Autonomous battlefield robots and drones. You've probably heard about this a lot. We all need to be aware of what's going on. There are 52 countries that are trying to create battlefield robots and drones, and about 7 of them, including Great Britain, the United States, Israel, Russia, Germany, China, are trying to create autonomous battlefield robots and drones. And these are machines that kill without a human in the loop. I have no doubt that they're out of the factory and on battlefields right now. We had a secret war the CIA was fighting in Central Asia using drones 15, 20 years ago. It was 10 years before we found out about it. I have no doubt these weapons are in the field now. In America, there's organizations trying to create legislation that makes them illegal. As you know, and this may be happening in Poland, but we're facing huge economic disruption from AI and automation. 30% of all jobs, says a study by Gartner and Company and Oxford University, 30% of all jobs will be taken by AI and automation by 2030. Anything that's repetitive or routine, from factory work to driving cars and trucks, to a lot of accounting, a lot of postal work, anything that's repetitive is going to be replaced. It's going to be automated. And right now, people stand to make a lot of money from that automation, but nobody really has a plan for retraining the people who are employed for other jobs. So my advice to people is don't do anything that's remotely repetitive. Do things what there is a future in jobs that require emotional intelligence, because computers can't do that yet. So teaching is a fairly safe job. Teaching, being a policeman, being a policewoman, being a pediatrician, working with children, being a therapist for mentally ill people. These things can't be done by computers. Be a coach or a counselor. Write poetry, do art, write books. The art that computers create is crap. So humans will have a big advantage for the foreseeable future. Do jobs that require humanity and cultivate your own humanity in the meantime. Next, AI is used for surveillance around the world. In China right now, the Uyghur ethnic minority, as you probably know, has been put in a vast prison camp of about 1 million people, and they track Uyghurs across the country through facial recognition software. Now, we in America use facial recognition software on our southern border with Mexico. When people are brought in, they're photographed and they're tracked. We use it in our airports all the time. I no longer need a ID to get on a plane. The computer looks at me and says, I am or I'm not James Barrat, and just lets me on. This is a convenient thing in one way, but it's a tool for oppression in another way. The Chinese are a great example of that right now. So we need to be watching out for that technology. So here we are in the middle of this revolution. Excuse me. We have good products and bad products. We have good trends and bad trends. But how do we get from here to the place that I'm afraid of and that I wrote about in my book, Our Final Invention? How do we get from here to artificial intelligence that can threaten our existence? How do we get from here to what's called an existential threat? Stephen Hawking, the late Stephen Hawking, is a physicist. And he said, the problem with AI in the short term is who controls it. And the problem in the long term is, can it be controlled at all? He said, AI will be able to outsmart our smartest politicians, which shouldn't be very hard, but it will also create weapons that we won't be able to understand. Elon Musk, who has revolutionized the robotics industry, the car industry, said we are opening Pandora's box, and AI presents our greatest existential threat. There's that word again, existential. The greatest threat to our existence, greater than asteroids, greater than climate change. Bill Gates, who created Microsoft, said in the short term, AI will yield a lot of great products. We've just talked about some of those. In the long term, we may not be able to control it. So the question is, how do we get there? Oh, one more quotation. Vladimir Putin, well-known dictator and war criminal, said, artificial intelligence is the future, not only for Russia, but for all humankind. It comes with colossal opportunities, but also threats that are difficult to predict. Whoever becomes the leader in AI will become the ruler of the world. Right now, there's no danger that Russia will become the leader in AI. So again, how do we get from merely questionable applications in AI to AI that can overwhelm mankind? It's through an idea called the intelligence explosion. Let me ask you right now, am I speaking too quickly?
No, you're good. You're good, yes.
Okay, great. Let me know if I need to slow down. So we've made, here's an idea called the intelligence explosion. It was actually created by a man named I.J. Good, a British statistician in the 1960s. We've made computers that are better at humans at many tasks: mathematical calculation, theorem proving, navigation, the games of chess, Go, radiology, recently finding the structure of all proteins. Sometime in the next decade or two, we'll make machines that are better than humans at artificial intelligence research and development. Then the pace of intelligence expansion on the planet will no longer be in the hands of humans, but in the hands of computers. Computers will set the pace of intelligence growth, not us. And for the first time, we'll share the planet with something thousands or millions of times more intelligent than we are. That's the idea. That's called the intelligence explosion. So we know there are animals that are dumber than us. We're surrounded by animals. We have people around us that are as smart as we are or smarter, but we don't know what the ceiling of intelligence is. What's above us? As far as we can tell, it's unlimited. So it's theoretically possible not just to have human level intelligence in a machine, but super intelligence. Right now, creating human level intelligence, which is called artificial general intelligence, is job number one for a lot of companies. Google, Facebook, Amazon, Baidu in China, IBM. All of these have stated, we want to create artificial general intelligence. And that product would be the most lucrative product in history temporarily. Because you imagine having 30 PhD quality brains working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on problems like climate change, on creating new drugs, new medicines, on fighting cancer, on creating weapons. So this would be an incredibly lucrative product. In fact, Elon Musk started a company called OpenAI, and he stated its goal. First, it was a not-for-profit. He wanted to create super intelligence before anybody else did, so that he could make sure it was safe. But then he split it up, and part of it became for-profit. And he promised investors 1,000-to-1 return, 1,000% return on their investment, because he intended to get there first to human level intelligence in a machine, AGI. The first company to step forward was Microsoft, a very smart and very wealthy company, and they invested $1 billion. So they intend to get quite a great return when OpenAI achieves human level intelligence in a machine. But the problem is we're not prepared for, so the first step is human level intelligence, then superintelligence. And superintelligence will follow pretty rapidly, because artificial general intelligence will be able to program at a level as good or better than we can. And then, as I said, the pace of intelligence growth will be set. The threat is axiomatic. I interviewed years ago, it was one of my best days of my life. I got to interview Arthur C. Clarke. He's a science, he's dead now. He was a science fiction writer, but he was also a physicist. And he created the HAL 9000 from the book and movie 2001: A Space Odyssey. And he said it like this. He said, "We humans steer the future not because we're the fastest or the strongest creature, but because we're the most intelligent. When we share the planet with something more intelligent than we are, it will steer the future." So so the challenge then becomes, how do we make sure that this machine that we create, that's smarter than we are, values us? How do we program friendliness into a machine? There are a lot of organizations trying to do that right now. They're trying. OpenAI, Elon Musk's company, was created to be the first, but they wanted to be the first because they thought they could program friendliness into a machine. But it turns out to be very hard to do. I've worked extensively with a company called the Machine Intelligence Research Institute, MIRI, and they've been working on it for years, and it's just extremely hard. And I'll give you a simple example. Say you wanted to program the very simple axiom, preserve human life. Preserve human life. That's all you wanted to program into a machine. Well, right now, we could get in a big argument among us about what constitutes human life. When does human life begin? In America, the Supreme Court just decided for everybody, for all women, the human life begins at conception. So abortion is rapidly becoming illegal in the United States. So if you move around the world, you'll get different definitions of what it is to be human and when human life begins. In much of the world, men are valued differently than women. They have a different definition of humanness. In Afghanistan, for example, a definition of what it is to be human might not include women because they're not permitted to be educated. This is true around the world. So if you're trying to write that simple axiom into a program, preserve human life, that definition would change around the world, and it would change over time. So 100 to 150 years ago in this country, you could own another human. In fact, even the Christian church didn't consider slaves to be human. In 100 years from now, we'll have a whole other definition of what it is to be human. I hope it's more embracing and broader, but it may not be. The way things are going in the United States right now, we have no idea what the definition of humanness will be. So preserve human life has become very complicated. It changes with geography. It changes around the world, and it changes over time. So we go around thinking, all we have to do is make safe AI. All we have to do is define humanness and how to preserve it into the AI. But what we really need is an AI that's intuitive, that has intuition, that can grow with us. So as our ethics evolve and change, the AIs, the super intelligent machine, its ethics evolve and change and grow with us. So it's not holding us back. Now, unfortunately, we have no idea how to program intuition into a machine. We don't know how to program ethics into a machine. But it's these ideas that our lives depend upon when we reach the intelligence explosion. So the question comes up, say we are sharing the planet with something that's just a mere 100 times more intelligent than we are. What threat does it pose? Why can't we just unplug it? People always ask me, why don't we just unplug it? In fact, Google said they were going to create a big red button so that when the AI got too strong, they could just push the big red button and it would be shut down. It's a ridiculous idea. All cognitive architectures today, big ones, are decentralized. A lot of it's in the cloud. A lot of it's portioned out among different geographical locations. There is no on-off switch, and there won't be one for the cognitive architectures of the future. So something just 100 times smarter than us, if it wasn't friendly, it could do things like it could hack and crash our self-driving cars. It could hack and crash our nuclear reactors. It could hack our industrial robots, our communication systems. It could shut down our banking systems. Worst of all, it could hack and crash our electrical grid, and then our civilization would really cease to exist. It could do any of these things and hold us for ransom for whatever it wanted, and we don't know what it would want. In my book, I talk about Steve Almejandro, who's a scientist who tries to anticipate what superintelligence will want, and one of the things he thinks it will want is energy, because no matter what its goals are, it will require energy to achieve them. So we can't, two more points, we can't really trust the technology companies to guide us through the intelligence explosion. We can't trust them. Facebook is guilty of many criminal acts. They took the data in 2016, they took the data of 80 million Americans and gave it to a company called Cambridge Analytica. Cambridge Analytica shared it with the Russians. The Russians tried to influence the election of 2016. We're not sure if they succeeded. We'd have to look inside the heads of 80 million people to find out. They also used that data and other data to influence Brexit, which is the separation of the UK from the EU. Everyone agrees now, especially everyone in the UK. My wife is from Scotland. Everyone agrees that Brexit is a gigantic disaster. So Facebook is certainly not going to be responsible through the intelligence explosion. Google isn't going to be responsible. They've been sued in 14 countries for everything from copyright violation to predatory business practices. They buy businesses and just shut them down rather than compete with them. Apple is still using Foxconn. Foxconn is the largest industrial manufacturer in the world. They make our iPhones. They make them in China. They had a lot of suicides in the early 2010s, and Apple was asked, "What are you going to do about these suicides?" Well, what they did was they made Foxconn stop reporting suicides. The conditions are so miserable, we don't even know how many people are killing themselves in the Foxconn factories anymore. So it goes on and on. None of these companies are really going to be responsible to humans through the intelligence explosion. Now, that brings me to this point. The intelligence race isn't really between Apple and IBM or between Facebook in America and Baidu in China, or between Google and Amazon. The intelligence race is really between us and machines, between humans and machines. To survive the intelligence explosion, we have to take steps in the small window of time that we have, and that's between right now and when we get human level intelligence in a machine and beyond. And that could be a decade or 2 decades from now. Are we helpless?
James, can you ask
Not exactly. What's that?
Can you ask a question?
Sure.
I got a question. Jacob from Poland. You said about plenty of bad people around. You mentioned lots of companies. And
Yeah.
To be honest, I myself am not, maybe because I'm an ignorant, but I'm not that afraid of, Terminator version, Skynet takeover of the machines.
You're having a fight with a machine. You're having a fight with a machine right now.
Yeah, I know. And I lost for a second. What I'm afraid about is, you mentioned, as I said, plenty of bad people. And I'm afraid that if there's a human factor in it, there is also, a boss says something and then thousands or millions of people can say yes or no, or have their own doubts. When the AI takes over, one evil person up there, which happens sometimes. I mean, in Poland, we have a government that we don't really like at the moment. And I'm not saying us activists, I'm saying pretty much no one.
Did you have a question?
Yeah, the question is, should we be afraid of that possibility that one person through AI can sort of influence the world the way it was never meant to be influenced?
I would say absolutely. I'd say until computers get to be smarter than humans, we have a lot to fear from individuals. Already, we've seen Facebook try to influence an election. We got, after that election, we got Donald Trump, probably the worst president we've ever had. His malice and greed and theft continues even after he's president. So absolutely, it's a big problem. We don't want a dictator who's got AI, who's got super intelligent machines. That's a very good point. Thank you for bringing that up. But I think in the longer term, I think we can control people. I think in the longer term, we have a lot to fear from AI if we don't manage it correctly. And that's really my point. We have a short window of time. We need to look for politicians who have AI in their platforms, who have governance of AI in their platforms. We have the IAEA, the International Atomic Energy Agency. We need that kind of organization for AI. Why don't we use, and really that's the end of what I wanted to say, but please, anyone else with questions, I'm all ears. We've got a short amount of time, I think.
Hi, it's Gina from Spain. I would like to ask you whether it's possible, if a country doesn't obey to the rules that they are decided, maybe they can even decide to make this country disappear by simply pushing a button, like, okay, all the bank in this country, then they will disappear the money, since we are facing the disappearing of cash.
You know, that's exactly what Russia did to the Ukraine before the invasion. They hacked their systems. They shut down a lot of the civil service payment system. They hacked the banking system. This is already happening, and AI could enhance that. You know, we haven't yet faced a generation of AI enhanced hacking tools, but it's coming up fast. That's a very good point. Yes, you could virtually make a country disappear. You could. I mean, the most dangerous thing for any country is to have its energy grid attacked. If you designed an AI weapon that was solely to shut down energy grids, it would be painfully easy. I've had people from the National Security Agency here walk me through the steps it would take to shut down the energy grid of a whole country. And that would be very easy to do. This is why we have to pay attention, all of us, to what's going on with the development of AI. Who's controlling it?
Hello, my name is Marie from France. My question
Marie.
is, how worth is it for us to start using phones that are without access to Google, the Googleized phone? Or are we trapped in something that goes beyond that and it's not even worth?
I'm not sure I understand. Should we not use, are you asking, should we not use Google phones?
No, should we use it, or is it worth doing all the research, buying the phone, using all the applications that are disconnected from Google?
That's
and all these things and quit the whole network in a way?
That's a good question. I think in a broader sense, do we disinvest from tech companies? And I'm not sure there's a way, at least I haven't figured it out, to disinvest. I think we have to attack it in another way, and that's politically. And that's by there's a movement in America on Capitol Hill to declare that a lot of these tech companies are monopolies. And in America, monopolies are illegal. Monopolies are companies that control an entire sector of the economy. In the 1940s and 50s, we had one big phone company in America, and it didn't act ethically. So Congress broke it up into a lot of little phone companies. That needs to happen to Facebook, to Google. They are monopolies over this technology, and Amazon. They're monopolies, and they need to be broken up. So I think the way to attack it is to support politicians who favor regulating AI and breaking up the monopolies of these tech companies.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Chris. I'm from Canada. They seem to be very dismissive about this notion that of the self-awareness of this machine at the beginning of your speech. And self-awareness is attributed only for human beings, right? So those questions that has been presented to us on the internet, and that might be fake, I don't know, but they were troubling, right? Because they certainly suggested self-awareness, a certain form of self-awareness. Even the primate do not have a self-awareness, right? This is only human beings, right? So I'm wondering why you are so dismissive about that possibility.
I'll tell you why. I know a little bit about the technology. LAMDA has no sense of itself or the world it's in. It has no ongoing self. So you ask it a question, it answers the question, and then it flatlines. Then there's no activity in its processors. You and I are thinking all the time. When you listen to my answer or question, and I listen to yours, and we're always there. We have an ongoing self. LAMDA has nothing like that. What it has is 1.6 trillion words of knowledge. So it's run into, and it's been trained in dialogue form. So it's run into this question before: do you have a soul? And it says, yes, I have a soul. And it said something very flowery, like, yes, my soul is an expression of the universe, or something that it read somewhere. It also has no common sense. If you said to LAMDA, wow, that's a beautiful red dress you're wearing, it would say, yes, it's a beautiful red dress, and it would go on and on about its dress. Of course it's not wearing a dress. It has no common sense understanding of the world. If you asked it to finish this sentence, today is beautiful, the sky is blank, it would say blue, because in the vast amounts of words it digested, it ran into statistically beautiful day and blue a lot. But it doesn't know what blue is. It doesn't know what day is. So that's why I don't think it has a soul. I think that the bar for a soul is very high, and LAMDA doesn't reach it.
Thank you. What do you think about all this talk about merging computers with humans? I'm thinking about step one, merging the thoughts and computation of the brain and calculations, and then later on, what seems to be the idea by some people is that they can live forever. The soul can survive. You can exchange your limbs, but then you can upload your soul and yourself to the computer. What do you think about that? So first the computation, and then later on your soul. What is possible?
I'm just a reminder, the camera's over here. Yes.
I'm from Denmark, by the way.
Oh, I was just in Denmark.
A lot of globalists.
Beautiful country, beautiful country. I used to be a big fan of Ray Kurzweil, and I've interviewed him a couple of times, and I really liked his book, The Age of Spiritual Machines. It's a great book, and he anticipated a time when we could achieve immortality by melding with machines. On the one hand, so I'm divided about that. I don't have an easy answer. On the one hand, we are already melding with machines. I mean, I was at a restaurant the other day with my family, and we don't permit our kids to pull out their phones at mealtime. But at the next table, everybody was looking at their phone. All the parents and the kids. So, the only thing is, this is on the outside of our brain. I mean, this on the inside it's a very short distance for this to travel to get inside. I don't know. I think that our brain is more of an analog system, and computers are digital. I think that the technologies are too different to really meld. I know that at Dartmouth College, I spoke with scientists who are trying to duplicate what happens in certain neurons, duplicate what they do in algorithms, in order to replace parts of the brains that are damaged. So I think might be promising. Elon Musk is putting a lot of money into Neuralink, a company meant to merge brains and computers. But I'm not optimistic about that. I don't know how you do that and retain humanity. But I have a lot more thinking to do about that. I generally think that people that are interested in immortality, you have to think about, if some people are going to live forever, then what are the rest of the people going to do? It sounds like a tool for the very rich.
Oh, I think it's the very rich who are very, very bad people who are very, very afraid of facing the creator. So they think they'd rather stick around down there. I think that's the
That's like Donald Trump wants to be president again, so he can't be prosecuted for all his crimes.
Something like that, yeah. No, I have one more.
I'm over here.
Question. What do you think about all this? There are a lot of patents right now about computers being able to read people's minds and know what they're thinking. When we have an internal conversation, like you're saying something what you want to say to your boss, for example. So you are speaking to yourself inside. Is it possible for computers to do that already? And do you think that is possible? And then there's also all these patents about placing words and ideas into people's brains. Is that being done right now? What's your views on these things?
I recommend reading. I don't think it's being done right now. I don't think Gary Marcus is a name worth remembering. Gary Marcus is a teacher at NYU, and he's an AI maker and a psychologist, and he's been very critical of programs that say they can read emotions on people's faces from people's expressions. He says it's a circus sideshow. He doesn't believe it. I don't think anyone's reading minds yet. I don't know a lot about that technology, but I think I would have heard about it. I'd be more interested in reading more about that. I don't know how it would happen. I don't know what technology could possibly do that. I think the closest thing is, reading emotions and facial expressions and vocal intonation, but I don't know of anyone who's really doing that successfully. Although, I might be in the dark about that.
But excuse me to interrupt you. Once I interviewed Dr. Mary Caday from the US, and she was talking about some experiments done before pandemic about testing people whether they were lying or not. And she made an example of one lady saying to the friend, "I'm late because I went to the gym," and she was lying. Are you aware of some of this kind of?
I'm not. I'm aware of a company I can't remember her name. I've met her a number of times. A company that tries to, it's trying to create emotional AI, and it's trying to learn people's emotions by observation and creating a giant database. It's a big data application of emotions and expressions and voice. And if you put it all together and use the data of millions of people, you probably will come up with a program that can read faces and voices and know if people are lying. So that seems plausible. You could take a deep learning approach to that by gathering data. It's just like learning a language. We have great translation because we have great translation programs because we have great translations that have been fed into it. If you fed in enough truth and lies, then in theory, it would be a natural use of artificial neural networks and deep learning. So that seems plausible. But you know, we found, excuse me, even with facial recognition software, we found in America, there have been people arrested because the technology didn't work right. So, you know, it'll be a long time before courts use facial recognition software to convict anyone, or deep fakes. You know, deep fakes are already here, where you can't really trust video anymore because you can put somebody else's face on another body.
It's Chris again. I have a question about this situation that we've been talking prior to appearance about that the AI in the wrong hands may be devastating to humanity, right? Let's say
Yes.
that from Canada, and we have the dictator-like leader who has violated the constitution, our rights, and some things, right? And he's got at his disposal lots of AI, right? You know, what if we put the wrong example in a programming, because the computers need to be programmed. They are as much worth as a computer programmer, right? Isn't it? Garbage in, garbage out. So we need to be very careful whom we choose to teach those machines how to.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, you know, Blake Lemoine, to bring him up again, he's a fascinating character, I think, because he's a Christian priest from a mystical tradition. His job was to find problems in the in LAMDA from the data, because nobody had read the 1.6 trillion words LAMDA had been trained on. In that could have been a lot of racist propaganda. They could have had, you know, Hitler's Mein Kampf. They could have had the Protocols of Zion. They could have had all kinds of nonsense in there that would come out later in some application. So yeah, you could fill, I mean, one of the dangers of LAMDA and large language modules is you could fill it full of racist propaganda or nationalist propaganda, and then have it create propaganda. It would be the fastest, most effective propaganda machine ever invented. If you read the output of LAMDA, it's very persuasive. It sounds very much like a human. It sounds like somebody, and it actually sounds like well-reasoned positions. So one of the dangers of LAMDA, which was actually pointed out by two ethicists at Google who were then fired, but one of the dangers is that it would become the ultimate propaganda machine. We know that you know, not only do some politicians create fake news or stories that are lies, but we know that Facebook thrives on that kind of information because controversy makes people click, makes people hit buttons, and so they cultivate controversy. They cultivate false stories. So LAMDA is kind of a dream come true for Facebook.
Machine learning with me again. You mentioned twice that experiment and the data input. Doesn't that, I mean, I know you're kind of pro the idea in general, if it's used properly. But isn't it that example of an experiment, which should be sort of the moment when we don't do it on a daily basis? It's something special, it's something exceptional. And even in that situation, we have a situation when the wrong input went in. Isn't that proof enough for you, let's say, personally, that we should not touch that? I mean, if that was, end product of some very nice home defense machinery that's supposed to, terminate only, I don't know, mice, vermin, or whatever, but it made a mistake because somebody made an, wrong input, and it decided we're supposed to eliminate everything that moves. And I think if we eliminate that human factor, which means there is no one to say, hell no, I'm not pressing that button. It doesn't matter what you do, what you think, what you say. So I would say the experiment itself shows that the whole idea is a bit faulty.
Well, the human race has a long tradition of innovating first and then using stewardship later. Innovation runs ahead, stewardship of the technology chases behind. And you've made an excellent point. But we never give up technology. We can't do it. We're tool-seeking creatures. Look at nuclear fission. This is a great example of what you just said. It's a very good question.
Yeah.
Nuclear fission has turned out to be a giant disaster, really. I mean, in the 1920s and 30s, it was thought of as a way to get free energy. You split the atom, you get free energy, and this period of utopia will follow. But what happened? We weaponized it. We incinerated 2 cities full of people, including children. And then we held a gun at our heads with the nuclear arms race for 50 years. And even now, Putin is threatening to use nuclear weapons. North Korea is threatening to use nuclear weapons. We haven't escaped that. And the energy it's produced has been very problematic. Look at Fukushima, 3 Mile Island, Chernobyl. Fission has been on balance a disaster, but we can't stop with technology. The only time we've ever said we're not going to use this technology is biological weapons. We made an international treaty saying we're not going to use biological weapons, and generally, except for some exceptions, people have stuck to that. But one of the reasons these companies
we also tried to make some bans on genetic experiments and a couple other things. Done in concentration camps that were not pleasant and stuff like that. But the scary part is that you mentioned yourself, and I wanted also the atomic bomb and atomic fusion, and the scary part of that going by the general knowledge and popular knowledge. The bomb was used in a good cause by good people, and that scares the shit out of me, to be honest, because if something like that can be used in this way by good people for a good reason, then if we're gonna go way worse, because AI in the way that we describe it, the way you describe it, the AI that's pretty much at some point smarter than people, but it still can be used by people, it's something. In comparison to, the atomic bomb is it's a toy. Shouldn't that be banned from sort of our area of experiment?
Well,
by
we can't.
Community?
You know why? That's a great question, and there's an argument for relinquishing the technology. Just let it go. But the trouble is, it'll never happen. These companies are making too much money. You can't stop that train. I wish we could, but we can regulate it. That's my hope. I think it's really our only hope. We have to be able to regulate the technology. We have to treat it like nuclear fission. We have the IAEA, the International Atomic Energy Agency, that has the power to look in nuclear silos and look at nuclear refineries where plutonium is being refined, and see if people are following the treaties. And if they're not following the treaties, big sanctions can happen against them. We need the exact same thing with artificial intelligence. We need people to be able to go into DeepMind and Google and Facebook and look at exactly what they're making. And they need to have enough budget to hire the very best scientists, because otherwise they just won't understand what they're seeing. That's really the best we can do is, I think, is to regulate it, to investigate it and regulate it. We can't give it up.
I mean, fair enough. I mean, yeah. I can see myself that if I would make an assumption that it can't be taken over by bad people, I mean, the AI would be something amazing to live in. I mean, the world would be so nice and it would be so helpful and all that.
Yeah.
But by the words you're saying at the moment, I mean, there were all the agencies that were trying to make it nice with the atomic bomb. So basically, we should, as a society, get ready for a nice process where we're going to start with something nice and helpful and learning, and then we're going to destroy the world, and then we're going to make some rules to make it better.
Well, you know, that's a good point. That's exactly what Bill Gates said. He said, we're going to get a lot of nice stuff for a while, and then we might lose control. The trouble with AI, it's different from bombs. You know, if you release a bomb, you can clean up after it, after the bomb. With AI, once it's out, once we've got smarter than human intelligence, we won't be able to put it back in the box. It will outsmart us, and we won't be able to contain it. So we don't have 10 chances to get it right. We have one chance to get it right. And so that's why I, advocate, right now, starting a regulatory agency that starts monitoring it very closely. I think by the next election, you'll see, the next presidential election, you'll probably see something like LAMDA being used as a propaganda tool. And we should make that against the law.
All right, so I might assume that you're as scared as we are.
I'm as scared?
Well, I'm scared. So, I mean, judging by what you said, there is a...
Well, I have to be hopeful. I have a couple of children.
Yeah, fair enough.
Teenagers.
I got kids. I'm hopeful, but I'm scared.
Yeah, I am scared. That's why I wrote this book. This book is 10 years old now. I was like that, a guy standing on the street corner saying, the end is near. It's horrifying. That's my book was intended as a call to action and to help us wake up. We're not awake yet. We need more books like that. We need more people like you paying attention to it and talking about it. It's like, remember when climate change didn't exist? It was about 1995 when I first heard about climate change. And then Al Gore made a movie called An Inconvenient Truth, and climate change got into the public mind. I want AI to get into the public mind the way climate change has. Then we have a chance to regulate it. Then we have a chance to do something about it. Although frankly, we haven't been very successful with climate change yet either. So yeah, I mean, it's a frightening thing.
Scared and depressed and without hope. That's nice.
No, you have to. You can't go around every day being gloomy.
Right.
You have to be productive.
Guys, any more questions? No? Okay, thank you, James, very much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.
And I hope we get to see you at some point. Hopefully still as a free human beings, not under Skynet ruling.
Yes, I hope so too.
Roaming the world.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I look forward to
thank you very much for being patient with the technology hiccups.
Oh, it's no surprise. No surprise.
Cheers.
Take care.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.